Cold. Yeah, at least I am. To the bone. Does put you in a crappy mood. So, time to talk about antinatalism again. Yay! Anyway, shlockofgod did a video. Rabbit 8 did a video. I hope to make a response to that, but, you know, we'll see how the time goes. So I'll handle the shlockofgod guy first. He's very polite, nice in some ways, but, very patronizing and insulting in others. But anyway, he's making this argument that there's no moral imperative here, that we haven't convinced him. My. Really, the proof has, we have to prove it beyond an unreasonable fantasy. They're not looking for logical proofs. They want proofs that will annihilate their wishes and hopes, not ones that merely demonstrate a truth. And so, because we can't make out the victims to be bloody enough, the prospect of living a horrific life blighted by years or decades of mental torment doesn't scare them. Doesn't shrivel them up any. It does reduce our number of weapons when they can just say something like, I can do 6 million Jews in a concentration camp stand on my head. No big deal. I can contemplate civil war. No big deal. I can contemplate, the trail of tears and the annihilation of entire nations of people. Yeah, no problem. I can skip right past that. So you're not scaring me with your naysaying and your depressiveness. It's just, and I haven't gotten to the Inquisition, the Dark Ages, where we tortured people. We made instruments. People actually sat around and said, let's come up with devices to torture people with. That doesn't bother you. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't horrify you. You've seen, Saw 14. What do you care? Torture, horror, guts, gore? Yeah. Bring it on. Yeah, so what am I going to do? Yeah, that's right. I can't scare you. I can't put the fear of life into you. And you're going to just argue back at me with, look, I've been totally raised by the Borg, and they've indoctrinated me into this fluffy life idea, and I'm totally into the whole chasey thing. So you haven't convinced me. Well, no surprise. But anyway, I will tackle your argument here. So you're saying there's no moral imperative. I think that's the word you used. What moral principle? The principle would be theft. The principle would be the negligence, the, what do you call that? Endangerment. Reckless endangerment. How about that one? We've made all these analogies, but I'll run through them again quick. As the gambling one, which I just think is slam dunk. You just can't get out of that one. What somebody's doing when they're nadling is they're rolling dice with something else's welfare. They're assuming they're at the table, they're going to roll these dice, and it's their assumption that everything's going to be okay, that they're going to win. They're certainly not going to lose. And if they do lose, they'll be able to do something about it. That it won't be a loss somehow. Somehow they won't really lose. And the reason why they have that feeling is because they're not rolling with their own welfare. They're not. They can calculate the risk to themselves. They can't really calculate the risk to somebody else. I think they can, but they don't wish to. That's the plain truth of it. And so what they're doing is not much different than me playing with matches right next to your house. And I'm just going to decide that I want to play with matches. I'm going to play next to your house. And if it burns it down, too bad, fella. because I wanted to play with matches. That's another analogy, actually. So let's stick with the gambling thing. So yeah, you're assigning a risk for somebody else. You're gambling with their material welfare. It's that simple. It is basically gambling where if you lose, the third party loses their house. You're like gambling with somebody else's property. Now, obviously, you could see there would be reason to have laws against such behavior, that it would violate an ethical or moral principle to be gambling with somebody else's house. It's not your right. It's a trespass. It's an imposition. All right, the other analogy was the drunk driver one, where, again, because you want to do something, not because you need to, not because you have to, no emergency here, because you want to, there's an extra risk that you're going to be imposing, a risk of real and substantial harm. There's also the possibility that you will, the likelihood even, that everything will go fine, you'll get home, and there'll be all smiley faces everywhere. And you'll have a much better time because you were able to drive yourself home and didn't have the inconvenience of having to take a bus or walk or find somebody else to get you home. But we know the risk. The risk is you kill somebody. You take everything, all right? Complete disaster. All right, not a little disaster, a complete disaster. A meltdown. An ethical meltdown. A moral meltdown. Where you do something that there's no fixing. There's no compensation. There's no payoff that undoes it. There's nothing. It's a moral catastrophe, period. No reclamation possible. And that's the risk you're taking. For what? For a trivial want. An unnecessary indulgence of a simple-minded, at best, desire. As many concede, a natural desire. Well, guess what? That's hardly good enough. Hardly. So in the third, I'll give you another example. Might be, if you know you have a disease, like AIDS or something. Let's just say there's some worse disease, and you have it. And there's a 1 in 100 chance that you'll pass it on to the person you're going to have sex with. You can understand how that would be morally wrong if you didn't get their consent, if they weren't informed of what what's being imposed upon them, and it's just an obligation. You're arguing, well, the people I have sex with are always in a coma, and I can't ask them. Well, that's just too bad. That doesn't change the fact of your obligation. So you're the one who has to have some kind of imperative, some sort of principle of need that can override you having to do the necessary paperwork. You have to have a cause so great that you don't have to go through the bureaucracy, the kindness, the consideration, the ethically correct procedure of getting consent, where you have a guarantee of long-term good, of satisfactory substance to justify the imposition of the harm on a select minority. So then we're almost back to the slavery argument, where, we assign the burden to a minority of the population so the majority can live well. We don't have a right to do that assignment. It may, in fact, even be productive for there to be such an arrangement where all the burden falls on a few and a great many reap the luxury. But even if it was, it's the assignment of the payment that's unfair. You can't draw straws for other people. So I've used that analogy. You can understand how that would be unethical for you to draw straws, get into a game of strawing with somebody else's welfare. So I don't know what else to say. These are metaphors, analogies for the circumstance. You haven't explained how they're not applicable, they're irrelevant, that they don't fit the circumstance. They do. So I don't know what you need in terms of some sort of logical spell it out. You just keep, scoffing at the idea of the necessity of there being consent, of the necessity of the risk being your own rather than somebody else's. You keep trying to evade the fact that a new life is that, a new life. And it's not, you're not qualified by anything to impose it. I mean, some jerk on Rabbit 8's video brought up, well, we allow people to drive cars. Again, everybody's assigning that risk, and we license them. We do everything we can to attempt to make them do it safely. We have speed laws, and we drive on one side of the street, going one way. We put barriers between the traffic. We do lots of things. We require child safety seats. We do lots of things to attempt to minimize the risk. And the reason why we accept any risk is because of the necessity, okay? The fact that much welfare will be enhanced by performing the act. Procreation doesn't serve any necessary enhancement. It doesn't make the world a better place. It doesn't fix anything by itself, inherently. It isn't intrinsically productive. So it has none of the obvious mission statements necessary that defend and justify the fact that we accept a risk of automobile conveyance. And even when we do that, we understand the idea of negligence. We impose responsibility on people for recklessness. Again, none of these issues even come up with something as vital as creating new life forms. And we know why these issues don't come up is because of the religious heritage, because it was a presumption that God says so, and that God sanctions fruitful multiplication. And that's the only reason why this behavior hasn't been subject to any kind of scrutiny, social scrutiny. But we know also that we've paid a huge price for that lack of scrutiny. We have whole huge populations basically extorting societies into subsidizing their reproductive decisions. We create welfare states by subsidizing this natal behavior and allowing people to just hold up a baby and say, provide for me or I'll harm this innocent creature. And that's part of the irony here, is that you people seem to understand the concept that babies grow into human beings when you're talking about public education and health care and other necessities of developing a responsible citizen, and yet you deny the implications, when we're talking about taking responsibility ahead of time before you step into the mess. So that's sort of a big joke that you get it when it's to your advantage, obviously, in an argument, and you don't get it when it's to your disadvantage. So this is just, I don't know what you need in terms of a logical statement. I would still argue that you're the people with the burden of proof. You're the one putting something at risk. You're the one creating the need for a concern. There'd be no need for my concern. There'd be no need, even my inconvenience is part of your iniquity, or whatever, part of your crime. Because now you oblige me to be concerned. Because now you've imposed upon me this problem to take care of. This problem that will need service and attention. I'll have to give it thought. I'll have to argue. I'll have to do all this crap because you people keep imposing. Just as I'm stuck with a bunch of feral cats to worry about and take care of. Because some other asshole thought it was fun to watch new ones pop out of old ones. Why should it be my problem? Why should I have to clean up your mess? Why should I have to worry about your mess? So your imposition not only goes to the individuals you harm through risk that you put at jeopardy through your whatever indulgence of your native desire, however to generously state that, but you also impose upon me, because now I have the necessary human concern, where I'm not going to just let things be harmed in front of me. So now I'm going to have to invest my welfare and capital in worrying about the future you're forcing to exist. So screw you for that too. Screw my parents for having me. Screw the rest of you for obliging me to have to fight this battle to stop you from making a mess that doesn't need to be made. Yeah, bastard. So anyway, enough of the video and such. Oh God, miserable day. Yeah. Anyway, I just really, oh God, do I hate being alive lately. Anyway, till next time and such. So forth and whatnot.